Now, since President Trump's first term, he has bulldozed his way through presidential norms with very little regard. And this week, really, that metaphor became a reality when the East Wing of the White House was demolished at Trump's request, with no respect for the historical structure and without any congressional approval or appropriation. The land which lays empty was the public-facing arm of the White House, the place where school children, tourists, and foreign dignitaries entered for tours and state dinners. Since Eleanor Roosevelt, every first lady has maintained an office in the East Wing. In its place will be a new 90,000 square foot ballroom, nearly twice the size of the entire White House and bigger than a football field. Originally projected at $200 million, costs have now ballooned to over $350 million. Trump says private donors and major corporations will be footing the bill, one of them being Comcast, the parent company of NBC.
So over the years, many presidents have made changes. This obviously would be the biggest change, but this was something they've wanted for at least 150 years. In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure. And it's something that has gotten incredible reviews.
It's giving Gilded Age. Speaking about the renovation, the White House press secretary called the president Trump's vision a builder at heart.
He's a builder at heart, clearly, and so his heart and his mind is always churning about how to improve things here on the White House grounds. But at this moment in time, of course, the ballroom is really the president's main priority.
Main priority is one thing, but the more important thing is that this is not one of Trump's personal properties. This isn't a Trump hotel or a golf course. This is the White House. It's the people's house. Presidents have the honor of being temporary occupants, but it belongs to the people. A physical embodiment of the American story, a symbol of democracy. It was constructed by immigrants and enslaved and freed Black Americans. It was burned first by British troops in 1814, and then they partially rebuilt. And like America, it has endured. The Trump administration has slammed criticism of the demolition as, quote, manufactured outrage, as Trump isn't the first president to renovate the grounds. And that is true. Several presidents have taken steps to put their personal stamp on it, whether it's FDR's indoor pool, Truman's bowling alley, or Obama's basketball court. Remember what a conversation that was. But this is different. At a time when the government is shut down, with hundreds of thousands living without pay and millions in danger of losing their SNAP benefits, and even more implications around people's health care, it may sound frivolous to be concerned with such a seemingly superficial subject as a top priority. But this is emblematic of the Trump presidency. He didn't consult historical conservationists or even Congress. Through the White House, they say they will be submitting their plans now after the damage has actually been done. And this is Donald Trump's MO. He just goes past checks and balances, operating as though the rules don't apply, making the White House, the people's house, his own, almost as if he doesn't plan on leaving. As columnist Jonathan V. Last writes, if Trump's demolition of the East Wing is allowed to stand, then there's no limiting principle on a president's ownership of the White House, and he becomes not a tenant, but a lord. Joining me now is Hayes Brown. He is a columnist for MSNBC Daily, and Jonathan Rubin, co-founder and editor-in-chief of The Contrarian and an MSNBC political analyst. Hayes, you wrote in an MSNBC piece this week, while not as psychologically damaging as the slide into authoritarianism that Trump has unleashed, the gaudy, gilded monstrosity that may eventually be attached to the people's house will serve as a reminder of how much his influence will be felt long after he is gone. Talk to me about this influence and what you think that sort of looks like following the Trump administration when you have a renovation like this to the White House.
I think that given the price tag, given how big it is, I think that future presidents will probably be hesitant to strike all the work that is done if work does go forward on this ballroom and go back to the way things were. I think that depending on how this shakes out, there's a lot of details we don't know yet, including whether or not there are going to be office spaces, like permanent office spaces, included in this new construction. We don't know if the First Lady moving forward will have office space in this new construction. I think that, and when you look at it, I think that there are some, people who, even in the Democratic camp, who are like, well, the White House did need a ballroom because we have these state dinners. Everyone's out on the lawn. It's kind of jank, to be honest. I think you had Joe Biden's former press secretary comparing it to the French, who have the Élysée Palace to host. But I would point out that that is a palace built for kings. I think that it is right and good that we did not have something similar attached to the White House to this point, that there was a more limited number of people who could come through, that I think a part of the reason why Trump wants this expanded ballroom is to enhance the number of people he can invite, to be grateful that they have this ticket now to come to the White House. The fact that it is being paid for by all these corporations and private donors, they are not doing this out of just the goodness of their hearts and just open up their wallets for this major expense. They're hoping to get something out of it. And that sort of influence buying, I think, is what will be felt down the line.
Jen, it's easy for people who are proponents of this administration to sort of say this is just another example of the left nitpicking at something that's really not relevant when you're having other conversations that are much more important about American workers not getting the money that they deserve when they're working for the government during a shutdown and everything else that we have going on as a nation. But can you put in perspective why this actually does matter and how important it is, particularly while you have Trump and some of his allies teasing a 2028 run for the presidency? Why does something like this really matter if you're reading the tea leaves?
Well, first of all, it's not his house. It's our house. He doesn't have the right to do whatever he wants. What's next? What if he decides he wants to level the entire place? Would that be okay? He's just going to rebuild it. He's going to put a Trump Tower there with a big T on top. No, this is not acceptable. And I don't think we should accept the fact it's going to be there or people will be reluctant to take it down. First of all, it can be stopped. Congress can pass a law. Congress can make it illegal to give funds to support something like this. When Democrats retake the House and or the Senate, they can do something. And frankly, future presidents should commit that they will not allow this monstrosity to take place. We should inform each and every one of those donors, you've thrown your money away because it's going to get ripped down. And we can also put some sanctions on those people. If you've given money in this manner, you're not going to do business with the government. I mean, come on, Democrats, you can be a little tougher. And the main problem here is influence buying. There are corporations and billionaires. They're not donors. They are influence peddlers, just like Mellon, who gave $130 million to buy part of the army. My God, this is the worst kind of privatization and corruption of the White House. The White House is not owned by private donors. It is owned by the American people. And to allow people to peddle influence, just like he's allowed people to peddle crypto, to peddle all kinds of other items to him and in exchange for pardons and other actions. This is an outrageous display and a grotesque display of corruption. So I don't think anyone should accept this. I think Congress should be outraged. I think Democrats should draw a line in the sand. And I think those donors should feel some public pressure. No, we don't appreciate corporations vowing to destroy our national heritage.
It's certainly an interesting call for action to Democrats in this moment about taking measures to stop this legislatively. I don't know with everything that they're battling with the shutdown that we will see that, but certainly as things try to move forward, that is at best wishful thinking. Hayes, let's talk about the White House's website and unveiling this rebrand, if you will, or this construction project. There are all sorts of references here that don't seem to have anything to do with building or expansion and the East Wing or a ballroom. There are references to Bill Clinton and his extramarital affairs. There are references or a picture of Barack Obama in a turban, and an unsubstantiated claim around Hunter Biden. None of this has anything to do with an East Wing expansion of the White House. So what is the White House attempting to accomplish here?
Change the subject. That's what they are best at. They are trying to engage in one of the honestly worst cases of whataboutism that I've seen in a minute, where in the midst of this controversy, you're saying, well, yeah, we're doing this, but I want you to look instead at all these things that we think that Democrats have done within the White House's grounds that were bad. And in pulling these images, like the long memed, racistly memed image of Barack Obama in a turban, and using that to mention the Muslim Brotherhood visit during his term, that's wild. I think that they've been trying to downplay this by pointing to past reconstructions within the White House, but they are, in doing so, I think they are not really accepting that those past renovations were done through Congress appropriating funds. They were major renovations like in the Truman presidency, where the White House was in danger of collapsing. They needed to gut the whole thing and rebuild the interior. Only the walls were left standing. I think that they're trying to downplay their own activity by saying this is fine, not just because other people have done it, falsely claiming that, but also falsely pointing to various other random instances of things that happen on the White House grounds to say, well, it's not as bad as this, it's not as bad as this. And I think that it really shows a lack of belief that the American people will be able to see through that.
Hayes Brown, Jennifer.